What? Why isn't my video playing?
I don't know. I think
Mother.
the aliens interrupted us.
I know. We're back. And guess what? We're talking aliens. Because it's fun. Jack.
Yes, it is.
Did you get your tinfoil hat yet?
I got my tinfoil hat. Yeah, I actually think Justice's idea is not too bad. What do you say? Call it the tinfoil hat talk?
Something like that, yeah.
We talk about every crazy idea out there, including aliens.
Including, yes, but not limited to aliens.
Yeah.
Remember I told you?
At least alien.
Yeah. Remember I told you about my dream the other day?
Yes, I did.
So I was thinking more about that. And I definitely think it does have something to do with falling skies. Because I'm really getting into that show. It's a little corny, but that's okay. Falling skies is, I don't know. You know, it kind of reminds me of like the Walking Dead of alien shows. You know, it's very dramatic. It's very, and you know what I mean? It's heavy. It's like an ensemble. There's not just like a couple main characters. There's like 5 or 6. And it's a good show. The graphics and like the CGI isn't 100% awesome all the time, but it's fun to watch. And I've been getting really into it, like binge worthy into it. And it's a good show, man. Have you ever seen it?
I saw the first 2 or 3 episodes when it first aired. What's it on now? How are you watching it?
HBO Max.
HBO Max. Damn, HBO Max has everything. Damn, I might have to get into that. The CGI is going to look a little bit dated because we just finished watching The Mandalorian, and even on CBS when they have Star Trek Picard, the CGI is like movie level, and that's only happened in the last couple of years where the CGI on TV is as good as the CGI in movies. So, but that doesn't bother me. If the story's good, it's good.
Yeah, and it has a good story. It like there's so many times where I find myself like, I'm like, yeah, this is just like Walking Dead. It's just aliens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not zombies, it's aliens. Same style. You know what I mean? They're always moving, going on food runs, medicine runs. I mean, it's like, it literally is. I guarantee when they pitched this show, that's how they pitched it. They're like, yeah, it's like The Walking Dead, but with aliens. And like the producers were like, yep. So
I forget that The Walking Dead has been around that long. Yeah, Walking Dead's been around since 2010. So yeah, Walking Dead was out at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Falling Skies was like 2011. So the year later. You know,
I like the interpretation that your dream was an omen about something about to happen. Because in the news today, SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, picked up some kind of frequency or waves from Proxima Centauri. Now, Proxima Centauri and Alpha Centauri, it's a dual binary star system, is the next closest star system to ours. It's about 4 light years away. And they're picking up some kind of signals. You already have the naysayers saying, oh, it's nothing to see here.
Right.
Just, you know, and then the rest of us are like, or is it? You know, that's what they would want you to say. Because there was a famous incident in the 70s. Remember have you heard of the WOW signal?
No, I have not.
Okay, so SETI takes information and converts it into numbers and letters. I don't understand. But then they picked up a sequence of information that implied that there's some intelligence entity that might have sent it. And the guy who's like, you know, the guy, whoever was monitoring it, circled it, wrote the words, wow. You know, where is that coming from? And the truth is with alien signals, because our galaxy is so huge. That signal, so light travels at 186 miles per second, 186,000 miles per second, and the speed of sound is almost not the speed of sound, but the speed at which a signal travels is almost that much. So if we're picking it up now, it might have been sent years ago.
Right.
And that's the crazy part, because people always say, well, how come SETI hasn't picked up anything? Number one, they might have and just never told us. Or when they do pick it up, that signal might have been sent thousands of years ago from another star system, and it's just reaching us now.
Yeah, isn't that kind of I can't remember who used to say it to me. But they always told me so when you look up at the stars, what you're seeing isn't, it's not right now. You're seeing the past. So reflecting its beauty. And I always thought that was really cool. As a young kid, like, you look into the star and what you're seeing is something that happened to the star, thousands of years ago. So, the sky always amazed me. It really did.
Yeah.
Looking above and just knowing that it just doesn't end. Like it just keeps going. And, to try to tell me, a little kid, like, oh, there's nothing out there. Like, it's just us. Come on, man. There's no fucking way that we're the only ones who were given the grace of life. Yeah, you're out of your goddamn mind. And so, you know what? I think last time we talked a little bit about, well, it wasn't last time necessarily, but it was last time we did the show together, not the alien show, but just a regular show, that you said they're going to call the Space Force members Guardians. So like Guardians of the Galaxy. Come on.
Yeah. That sounds so sci-fi.
Well,
I think that's leading up to something. I don't know. Maybe I'm just whatever, but the whole idea of Space Force and then the videos that were released in the summer, I think they're testing the waters, they meaning the government or whatever, to possibly reveal something soon. And soon could be a couple of years, maybe not to tomorrow. I know that astrologically, Jupiter and Saturn are the closest they've ever been. And a lot of people say that might have been the Christmas star, and that just happened on the 21st, the winter solstice, and Christmas is 2 days. So,
what are you talking about? The closest they've ever been?
Yeah, visually in the sky. So Jupiter and Saturn have different orbits. So for the first time in like 400 years, they're still like 500 million miles apart, but they're going to look like they're right next. It already happened. They look like they're right next to each other, and they believe when they're that close, it looks like a big star, and that. Probably what the Christmas star was going back 2,000 years ago that they, were waiting for. It'll happen again in like 60 years and then not again for another 400 years.
See, I feel like every fucking year there's something that happens now that isn't going to happen for another 3,000 years. Like something's always happening that's not going to happen again for a while. So like, what is it about right now that's so special? And I think that does have like a relationship to it. Like, there's been so much happening and so much change, but there's so many different aspects. Like something's like about to, like, you know what I mean? Like someone's shaking up the soda bottle and it's, someone's about to twist the cap off and shit all going to go everywhere. Cause this shit's been wild lately.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like I'm mentally prepared for whatever it could be. I mean, I'm not really I'm not into numerologies.
I love this. In getting kidnapped by them. But it was actually fairies. The fairies, Sam. Stop the fairies. And then they had nipples. It was hilarious. Great show. Great episode, I should say. Oh,
and thank you, Sarah, for watching. But like, I'm not really into numerology, but when they taught us about the Fibonacci sequence and they taught us about pi and how these numbers are recurring in nature, the theist argument is that that's an argument for God or some kind of intelligent design, which is not where I'm going with this, but sometimes the way numbers repeat in patterns, they say that pi, 3.14, etc., was discovered by the Greeks, in antiquity. So about 2,400 years ago. But 4,500 years ago, you find pi used in its measurements. The naysayers will say, well, that's just pure coincidence. They could not have known what pi was. They were hunter-gatherers. They were stupid. I mean, if they were stupid,
right,
and we still slab, 480 feet in the sky, without wheels, without cranes, the idea that maybe the ancient peoples, there's a theory that maybe ancient, as we become more modernized, we've gotten away from spiritualism, and I don't necessarily mean religion, but that ancient peoples were in some way communicating with the aliens. And some people have suggested that the pyramids, the way they're designed, the way they line up to these stars, was a form of communication. Like we think of communication like talking or radio or internet, that building these buildings might, now again, it's a theory, but the fact that we've always said that people were basically stupid until 5,000 years ago, history suggests that maybe that's not true. Maybe they didn't develop iPhones, but they developed different forms of communication.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And I think
it still doesn't even make sense how the pyramids were built.
Yeah.
Like those slabs, those rocks that they put that shit together with, thousands of pounds. And you don't just put that on a slaver's back and carry it up, especially when it gets to the higher elevations. Like, you know what I mean? Like some things don't add up.
Okay, the ramp itself would have to be a mile long. Did you guys lose me? Did you hear me? Like the ramp itself would have to be a greater achievement than the pyramids. Like it would have to get a ramp that long to, it'd have to start a mile away just to get it up to the top. I've been recently reading some interesting stuff. The ancient Egyptians had a phrase called Zep Tepi, meaning the first peoples. And there's a theory that the pyramids themselves may not have been built by the ancient Egyptians that we know of, but might have been built by a later people. So let's give you an example. Let's say Trump puts his face on the Washington Monument right next to Roosevelt and Jefferson and Lincoln in Washington, right? And then thousands of years from now...
Pause for a second. Could you imagine that shit? I could. I could totally imagine that. Hey, speaking of that,
thousands of years from now, people are like, well, I guess Trump was the one who built Mount Rushmore. The logic would be, well, if he's on there, the rest of them probably. So we assume that it was built by the Khufu. They're the two big pyramids. We associate that, but the actual history, actual connection, linking it to 4,500 years ago, is actually pretty loose. They found an ostrich egg that had art on it, right? And this ostrich egg is at least 10,000 years old, and on it has 3 pyramids. So there are theories, and I think it's interesting. They call it fringe archaeology. There's a very strong case to be made that those pyramids might have been built even longer. And the person they're attributed to, all he did was refurbished them, cleaned them up, fixed them up. But there's interesting theories that the Sphinx is even way older than that. It has to do with the water erosion. There's water erosion around the Sphinx. Well, it hasn't rained in the Sahara for 10,000 years. And the face that we see on it is too small for the body. It might have been done after the fact. It's like I said, Trump puts his face on Mount Rushmore, and 1,000 years from now, people are like, well, he must have been the guy who built it because he's the last face. So it's very much possible there were earlier peoples that lived and might have had some kind of lost knowledge that we don't have today. We think of knowledge in terms of technology, like we have Zoom, or we have, StreamYard and computers and all this stuff. Therefore, they were dumb. They were stupid. But maybe their form of intelligence, what they discovered, they might have figured out a way to communicate to the stars differently than we do. We're sending out radio signals. What if aliens aren't using radio signals? They might be using something completely different.
Right. And did you see that recent thing with the monolith in Arizona? and then it disappeared, and then it disappeared and like popped back up in like, I don't know, Ireland or something. Like it wasn't Ireland, but
somewhere in Europe, in Europe.
It disappeared and then popped up somewhere else. So are you calling that bullshit? Or are you calling that something different?
The way I look at the government, if the government wanted to find out who did that, they could have. Like, I don't think they're that, like, no one left one freaking fingerprint on it. They wiped the whole thing down and then somehow snuck back, took it away. Now, the model was what? It was a 2001 A Space Odyssey?
Yes.
So the fact that it's in that movie kind of makes it feel like, okay, maybe someone built that thing as a joke, and possible someone else had the same idea or they coordinated with each other, like with the crop circles. But I don't know. It's 2020 right now. Anything is possible. I don't know.
Right.
Or maybe they're just telling us that someone put it there. I don't, even if they had proof of what they would tell us, like, hey, breaking news, dude. I'm just hoping the president's being kind of a baby right now. I hope he just declassifies everything on January 19th, throws it out on the internet, and then like pardons himself and just walks out, like just drops the mic. Aliens are real. CIA killed Kennedy. The royal family are lizards. Just drop it all and just leave. Let the world like fall.
Well, he's holding up the whole stimulus thing right now, and that's not cool.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah,
that's not cool with me, man. I need that. I could really use that right now.
Everyone could use that. We need a better system. So, like, God forbid, this thing might happen again. I think his case is he wants more money.
Yeah, he wants. Well, no. So, he wants it to be a $2,000 check, and you know what I mean, like, and then $4,000 for couples. He might be saying that, but he knows that that's unattainable, and it's just another fucking middle finger to the people before he heads out. You know, like, you know what? I'm gonna hold this up. Like, it really doesn't fucking matter, dude. Just sign it. Stop being a baby and run in 4 years. Like, stop. Yeah. Just stop. Yeah. But again, I don't want to talk politics, but I could I could really use that shit right now.
I was thinking, like, I definitely want to upgrade my, equipment and stuff like that. If I could, he's the type of person who I genuinely think reads his tweets. I feel like I should, Mr. President, just declassify everything. Just one last little figure to the establishment. Just do it. You'll be the president. No one's going to care about the inauguration when it's proof that what actually happened at Roswell. Built the pyramids.
My God, man. He would go down, if there's one way to go down in history other than being like the first non-smart person to be a president. Not really, but you know what I mean. The first reality star president. Drop everything. Just drop it all and then walk off the stage like a boss. And then you're right. No one would care about Joe Biden's inauguration because they'd still be clamoring over years and years and years of fucking classified files. I would 100%, 100%.
First time we talked about this was because the Israelis, like Israel's version of NASA, like their space defense force. The guy who was the chief of that, he's like 86 years old. He said that Trump wanted to, but was stopped. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. And then, I don't know. Imagine, I don't know. Is that knowledge a burden at that point? Or is it a burden or is it a blessing?
I don't know. I know Jimmy Carter has said he's seen UFOs. I know Nancy Reagan, Ronald Reagan's wife, was into astrology because every president had been elected every 20 years had died in office for like 100 years. And Reagan was up. So she used to consult astrologers, and he was shot, but he survived. And he broke that. He broke that pattern. Going back to, I think, before Lincoln. I don't know who was president 20, but then it was Lincoln, then Garfield, then McKinley, then 1920. I forgot who was the president, and then Roosevelt. Like any president in every 20 years elected would somehow die in office. Then Kennedy, and then it would have been Reagan next. So I know that they know some of this stuff is real. Jimmy Carter's been pretty blatant. He's like, I once saw you. I don't have a good Jimmy Carter impression, but he said, I've seen UFOs. The governor of Arizona, remember I talked about the Phoenix Lights incident? His name, I forgot his name at the time. It's Fife Symington. He played the game. He made fun of the incident. He did a press conference making fun of the incident, but now he's like, oh, yeah, I was at my son's baseball game, and I definitely saw the lights. And by the way, I was an Air Force pilot. I know what planes look like. I'm not an idiot, Look up Fife Symington, Governor Fife Symington. He's retired now. His account of what happened in Arizona. There have been enough people. Edgar Mitchell, who was, I think, the sixth man to walk on the moon. I'm not surprised they haven't killed him yet, because he's been saying, "Oh, I saw stuff on the moon," and it's different when Alex Jones says it, but when you have a guy who was on, I think he was Apollo.
Fuck 11. Alex Jones.
Yeah. What I'm saying, forget him. But when you have someone who was on Apollo 11, I believe it was, saying that he saw stuff on the moon, it's like, ooh.
Yo, how fucking creepy would that be, right? So you jump into your metal can, your Coca-Cola can, and you're headed out to space, right? And you're completely oblivious to all of this. I mean, it might be running through your mind because you're about to go into space. Get to the moon, and people have a different connection to the moon, right? We can see it clearly. You can see it. There's no alien spaceships landing on it all the time. So you're like, okay, yeah, I got a good sense of what's going on the moon. Nothing. And then you get there and there's some fucking weird shit going on. And you're just you got 5 people tops that have your back on the moon. And you and whatever else is up there. That would be a genuinely terrifying situation. Genuine.
The theory is, again, this is theory. This is all conjecture, that the reason we haven't been back to the moon since 1971, maybe, is because we were told not to go back.
Ha! By who? The aliens?
Exactly. But it's interesting because it makes sense. If we're humans and if we had the technology to go to other planets and observe, a thing like the moon would be a perfect place to look from.
It would.
It would. And but I'm not saying aliens built the pyramids, but I do think they've been visiting us. There are too many hieroglyphs and art from thousands of years ago that show beings coming from the sky. Are they all seeing the same thing, or they're all just, people say, well, it's just your imagination. They people picture God in the sky and they draw God and art in the sky. But the ancient Egyptians, there's a pretty good movie. It's not a good movie, but the gods of Egypt kind of plays around with the thought. There was a civilization well before we were here, like our civilization. And given how old the universe is and how old the earth is, the theory is that there was a cataclysmic event that wiped out a huge generation of people. So in Judeo-Christian theology, that's Noah's Ark, right? The flood. Well, there are 60 to 80 other civilizations and religions that all tell a great flood story. And what we do know is that the Ice Age ended about 12,000 years ago like that. Something suddenly happened, and the theory has been a comet hit somewhere in North America and caused a ton of ice just to melt suddenly. And where are most cities? They're always on the coast. So there is no marine archaeology. What they do is they look at shipwrecks, but chances are that there's a lot of cities and towns that were submerged in water like that. That's the story of Atlantis, that there was a place on, this small island completely submerged by water. And if you look at the map before the melting of the ice caps and after, the map looks really different. So everything is still where it is, but there are more islands. Everything was connected. India was connected to Sri Lanka. So anything that was on there, any people living on the coast, immediately drowned by water as soon as those the ice caps melted and went into the water. So all that information, all those people, gone.
Wow.
And then humans built after that. And that's the civilization that we live in, going to the Sumerians and all that stuff. So it's very much possible that they were communicating with them, not with radio signals, but in other ways. Again, it's conjecture, but it makes you look at the past, because there's always this way we look at it, that people back then were stupid, they were dumb, They didn't figure out how to build a TV or a PlayStation, so they couldn't have been as advanced as we are today. But I could also make the argument that as advanced as we are today, as much information that we have on our hands, we're still kind of stupid. Like, it's not like we're smarter now than we were like 20 years ago. In fact, if anything, technology has made us dumber. So there's a case to be made that maybe certain civilizations, had reached some kind of pinnacle. Maybe not in terms of electronic technology, but I don't know.
Man, I would be in one of those places that immediately flooded too. That's not cool.
Yeah.
Like right now, I would be in a place that immediately went under. That would be terrible. My God, it's scary. It really is. So
if an iceberg were to, like one of those bigger glaciers were to melt and hit the ocean right now, the tsunami would go well past Philadelphia. So we're considered East Coast, even though we don't touch the Atlantic Ocean. But the Atlantic Ocean's only like, I don't know, 80 miles away, 90 miles away from us. Yeah. Would be underwater.
Yeah. So do you believe that alien races are still to this day living amongst us somewhere? Kind of like the Men in Black theory.
Yeah.
Not that there's a fucking agency that like checks them in, you know what I mean? Not like that crazy, but like,
like there's an Ellis Island for them.
They've been brought.
I would like to think, because we've heard stories, again, let's say that 10% of these abduction stories are accurate. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. It's very much possible that we're being visited by more than one species, if I wanted to go down that rabbit hole. And if they can travel faster than light, disguising yourself as a human would not be that hard. If they can warp time and space,
right?
Possible. There's some funny looking people out there. And I don't mean ugly people, but you ever meet someone who just looks weird?
Yeah, plenty of them.
Yeah.
We were just on the show with one.
David Van Eyck has always said that the royal family are actually lizard people and the Clintons are lizard people. I wouldn't go so far to say that, but if I think we're here, have you ever seen the show Fringe?
No.
Okay, so it's not a UFO show, but it is sort of like the paranormal type stuff. I always found it to be like a good sequel to the X-Files, even though they're not connected. They have these people who are called observers, and they don't interact with humans in the sense that but they observe great moments. And like in the show, they were there when 9/11 happened at Pearl Harbor. Like they're just there observing. They look like regular people, but maybe they might look a little bit off. I would think that they would want to observe us, and maybe they've observed us and they say they're not ready for first contact.
Wait, Fringe? That's what that's about?
Well, it's not about aliens, but there are observers. They live outside space and time. They're basically humans from the future. You find out later. But essentially each episode is some weird paranormal science. It's called it's taken out of the phrase fringe science, multiple dimensions. Great show, very underrated.
Oh, know that.
It's probably one of my favorite sci-fi.
Really?
It's right here, yeah. It was created by J.J. Abrams and not Christopher Nolan, but his brother.
Okay, yeah.
Jonathan Nolan. They created the show. And the guys who work with J.J. Abrams on the new Star Trek, Alex Kurtzman, Robert Orci, they wrote the show. Really good, really fun, entertaining sci-fi. It's nowhere streaming right now because I had to buy the show because we wanted to watch it from the beginning and we couldn't find it. Yeah.
I'll have to look into it. I'll have to look into that.
If they're among us, the one way of looking at it is, they control the governments. I don't think so. I think that they would be more like the observers in Fringe. Like they're kind of like tourists, that are observing human events, taking notes. Human beings, I think, are too unpredictable to control long term. Short term, yes, but not long term.
So remember that guy that? All right. So remember the guy that was on Joe Rogan who did the documentary with Bob?
Yeah, Bob Lazar. Yeah, the guy with the beard next to him.
Yeah. So he did another one, and I'm trying to think of what it's called. It was about a ranch. I can't remember what the ranch is. Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Skinwalker Ranch? Because I mean, some of the stories out of Skinwalker Ranch are just fucking crazy.
It's kind of funny. Every time I see a YouTube video, I always saw it said Skywalker Ranch because that's where Lucas lives. And they're like activities on Skinwalker.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Are there people who create stories to make money? Yes. But this one has been going on and off for decades. Animal mutilations.
Yeah.
They can't explain.
Specifically cow mutilations, right?
Yeah.
Cattle. Horse, I think maybe. Yeah. I can't remember.
And I think some sheep also, but like there have also been.
Oh, maybe it was.
Because I know cows are definitely one of them. But the stories of the people who have lived there are pretty frightening, and the things they have seen.
Yeah, like I honestly, that's why like I never live in a cabin in the woods. Like some people are like, all I want in my life is to live in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. It's like, nah, I'm good. I don't really like living in a city either because of like how dense the population is.
If these people are making this stuff up, and they could be, they should be working for Hollywood because even Hollywood can't come up with some of the creepy stuff that's happened there. I know there are numerous investigations there, and it's not just one incident; it's multiple incidents over many decades. I'm inclined to agree that okay, there's some things you can't explain or whatever, but I'm inclined to agree that some of them must be true. Maybe there are certain hot spots on this Earth, like coordinates. You know, that's the whole thing with Bermuda, the Bermuda Triangle. Maybe there are certain coordinates on this planet that goes back to the idea of numerology that might have meaning to someone else. You know, the way a street corner might for us when we're trying to find directions. Everyone knows about Times Square. Well, maybe there are mathematical coordinates. I'm going really tinfoil hat now, but Skinwalker Ranch might be one of them. The Bermuda Triangle might be one of them.
The Bermuda Triangle is interesting.
Yeah.
Because I mean there are things that you just literally can't, like they go in and they don't come out. And whether it started with ships, right? If I'm not wrong. Ships would just go. Yeah, and ships would just go lost and never be found again, and that's pretty creepy. Like Matt, you know what I mean? Like, so say you're you're a colonial, not a colonial, but you're someone, and you send a ship to bring spices or whatever it is. I don't know, and the ship just goes missing and never is heard of again, and like I don't know, like that stuff I would never be able to get over. I would always be constantly looking for. And, people spend their lives with this whole tinfoil hat talk and looking into it. I don't think it's crazy. I don't think they're crazy. I do think this specific topic, aliens, people go overboard. But like, there are things in this. Like, have you ever seen a UFO? Genuine.
Me personally, no.
Okay.
Me personally, no. So, but, I do have an interesting story I could tell when you're done.
Right. I have, and I don't pretend to know what it was. However, 100%, I didn't go, because I was younger. I didn't go on the internet because it didn't exist. I didn't go on the internet and like look at other people's accounts of what a UFO looked like or talk to anyone about it. I saw what I saw, and then it matched up with what other people saw. So, again, it goes back to like the how does this person have this idea, and then this person thousands of miles away have the same exact idea, and just tell it from a different perspective. So I was in my grandparents' front yard, and Hanscom Air Force Base is very close by to my grandparents' house. It's an Air Force base that is close enough by that planes do fly pretty low over that house. However, not as low as what I saw. I looked up 1 second because I used to throw the tennis ball onto the roof and it would roll back down, hit the gutter, and like pop back up to us. And we would play like off the roof. So we'd throw the ball, it would pop, and someone would catch it. And we were doing that. And all of a sudden, these 3 lights were above me and were just gone. Three lights in like a triangle shape, 3 circle lights were above me, and then they were just gone. And like I saw it move over the house, and I remember chasing it behind the house because I was like, what the fuck was that? And I chased it around the house, and it was just gone. And I could never, obviously I don't know what I saw, but planes don't look like that.
Yeah.
Or not any planes that I know of.
Yeah.
But then I've matched up what I think I saw with other people's accounts. 3 circle lights.
I've seen that 3 circle lights, and that also is similar to the Phoenix Lights incident. Just from a distance, it looks like they're right next to each other because you're looking at it from miles away. But the people underneath it said it looked like a triangle, and there was no sound, and there's floating right. They said it's like miles across, and it's going over them. I mean, it's interesting because this is their which base you said?
Hanscom Air Force Base.
Okay, so here's the story. One of our guys, where I used to play trivia, I used to host trivia at a place called the Gray Lodge. The guy comes in. Now this guy, he's a skateboarder, dude. Chill, relax, family guy. He's got a wife, kids, all that stuff. He comes in with the craziest story. He's like, I'm sitting, and an orb of light comes across me, zigzags around, and then disappears. And I know him well enough to know that he's not, like on drugs or, you know what I mean? Like, it's not something you make up. But it's also interesting. He lives right across the street from the Naval Support Center. There's a Naval Support Center here in Philadelphia, and he lives right on the other side. Here's a Naval Support Center, and there's a row of houses, and that's what he saw. It's very interesting that a lot of this happens near military bases. So the skeptic will say, well, there you go. It's because it's probably some new prototype the military's trying out. I'm like, then why are they trying it out in places where everyone can see it? If you're trying to hide this from the Russians or the Chinese, oh, hey, we're going to fly it over Phoenix, Arizona, where, up to 2-3 million people can see it. And we're going to test this, new craft we have. And it's like.
Yeah. And okay. And here's another thing. If they're testing all of these fucking crazy crafts, how come none of them are being used ever? How come none of them go past the test stage?
Yeah.
Not one single fucking crazy ass technology plane has ever gone into development. They just all get tested and that's it.
Yeah.
They're like, no, no, not there. No.
I was going to say this. If like 15 years ago, people said they were into aliens, you'd probably take a step back from them. Now I think we're at a place in this culture where if you say, I think aliens exist and we might have been visited, people don't recoil from that anymore. Now, maybe it's because we know more about science. People understand, how big the universe is, that they're more likely to believe that it's possible. There's supposed to be a UFO convention done by MUFON here in Philly in May, assuming the lockdowns are lifted. I was actually thinking of going. They usually have people who have worked in the government or claim to have worked in the government. It's like a 2-3 day thing. There's like a buffet and everything. And I was actually planning on going in May because I figured, I'm like, why not? Why not itch that scratch? Let me just see what that world is like. And a lot of times in films, when they show people who are into aliens, they always should make them like Alex Jones, but like crazier. But
that's true.
When you have people in the military and people who are Air Force veterans saying they see lights, have you heard of the Foo Fighters during World War II?
The band?
Not the band. Not the band. The band named themselves after this. So World War II, while in the Pacific especially, while the Allies, mostly American and Brits, were fighting the Japanese in the air, they would see these orbs of like lights moving around in crazy ways, and they called them Foo Fighters. And okay, you can say that I'm stupid, I don't know what I'm looking at, but you would imagine that pilots, Air Force and Navy pilots know what they're looking at. And to say that, we have to dismiss what they're saying too, seems very disingenuous. And I have to think that some of the leading scientists on TV or in on it, because there's a guy, one of these guys, Kaku. He's one of those. He's this Asian guy you always see. He's Japanese American. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye the Science Guy. These guys are on TV, all say the same talking standards. So when they were shown the video from this past summer, they're like, "Oh, that's probably a Chinese spy plane." I'm like, if the Chinese have technology that can do that, we're screwed. If they have planes that can go that fast and move that against the law of physics, then we're screwed. And we know the Chinese military, as powerful as they are still pretty much behind us. But they all said the same thing. Neil deGrasse said, "Well, I don't know what it is, but it's not aliens. I don't know. Unless you show me a body, it's not aliens." And he repeats this. I love watching Neil deGrasse Tyson, but it's almost like he's given a script to learn. I hope I've done enough public events to know that you have a certain set of things you always say when you do an event. It's sort of like with Drip's opening for every show. It's kind of memorized. And no, that's cool. No, I'm fine with it. But my point is, like, when
I can't fucking stand it. AKA, shut up. Say my fucking name and that's it.
Yeah, that's what but my point was, like, it feels very rehearsed, because look up Neil deGrasse Tyson on aliens. You'll find like 10 different videos. All 10 of them, he's saying the exact same thing. Now, you could say the last is scientists coming down to an outcome, and that's what he's just repeating because it's true. But it almost seems rehearsed, and you'll see like Sam Harris, another person I respect, will say the same thing, like, "Oh, you can't trust people's eyes. They don't know what they're, and all that." And it almost seems like they're almost probably told. Because chances are, if aliens do make first contact, those guys will be on every news station communicating for the government. They will be. It will be Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye. It will be Dr. Kaku. It'll be whoever these guys are. The ones you see on TV, the scientists. They'll be on CNN, MSNBC, and they'll be saying, "Now we know that they've come from." Well, Bob Lazar says Zeta Reticuli, which is nearby relatively. That's where he says that he heard they came from. And the cool thing about Bob Lazar is he's not like, "Oh, I definitely saw them." He's like, "This is the technology I saw, and I can tell you, we were told it's not from here." He could, if he wanted to make a more outlandish story, he could have easily have done it. But he's been telling the same story since the late 80s for 34, 35 years. Been telling the same exact story. He's never moved away. He could make the story more impressive, like, "Oh, I saw an alien body," and it came and talked to me. None of that, And I think the day is going to come when someone like him will be vindicated, where people like they were the first famous case of abduction, and these were normal people, church-going, folksy people. Everyone loved them. They had no reason to make a ridiculous story about being abducted to ruin their lives, essentially.
Right. Yeah, and Bob's life has theoretically been worse since this whole thing. Like, he has not gained a penny off of writing a book, doing TV. Like, the guy has really nothing to show except being alive, because that's what he did this for, was to stay alive and protect his family, so that if the government came a knocking and wanted to, lights out, that we would know that it was fishy, and he didn't just die of a stroke. Like, his whole family didn't just have heart attacks. He did it so people would understand, like, listen, I know these things. They know I know these things, and now they're trying to wipe me from existence. He hasn't, and that's what I find refreshing about him. He's not tinfoil hat. He's a scientist, and wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. And he could make a lot of money if he did like UFO conventions. He doesn't want to do them. He said on Joe Rogan, like, I have no interest in doing conventions. You know how much money he would make if he went to conventions and just told the same story again? Special guest Bob Lazar, $35 per person. He'd make a lot of money, and he still hasn't. He just won't do it.
People would eat out of the palm of his hand to hear that story over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
And but I would think that, I think we should listen to him. And they'll go into his past life, and they say, well, him and his wife had marital issues, and his wife tried to open a brothel. I'm like, dude, the guy lives near Vegas, so who cares? You know what I mean? These stories will come out to kind of make you think, oh, he's a bad guy. Well, he might be a bad guy. I don't know, but I don't think he is. But none of that really stuff has anything to do with what he's saying. So, and it was interesting. Yeah. That guy was lying. He was lying. And then that element 115 thing happens, and somewhere in Europe they discover element 115. They're like, hey, isn't that what he was talking about like 25 years ago? And
the fingerprint scanner, like the hand scanner.
Yeah. He talked about
and
that.
It measured the distance between bones, and that's how you were admitted into Area 51 or Area 49 or whatever it was. It's not Area 51.
S4. S4. We couldn't think of it before.
S4.
Yes. Yeah.
That's how you got into S4. And he would try to explain it to people, and they would be like, "You're out of your fucking mind, bro. Like that doesn't exist." And then the guy who did the interviews brought a picture of it. It was like he's like, "Yeah, that's what it is, right there, down to the description." You know what I mean? Exactly what he was saying. So the government had that theoretically, the government had fingerprint technology, or the start of it, long before smartphones and stuff like that. Something that could measure the distance between the bones in your hand, and everyone is unique. And that's how you would get access to S4. Like that shouldn't have been around then. That should not have been around at that time.
Well, the military was using the intranet, not internet, but intranet back in the 70s. They had the stealth fighter as early as the late 70s, early 80s, the Nightwing, but we didn't know about it until Desert Storm. We learned about Predator drones when we were going to Afghanistan, because I remember when we went to Afghanistan right after 9/11, like the new Predator drone. I'm like, do you think they just came up with that? They have probably been using that for years. And now they're like, oh, look what we made. This Predator drone, this thing that flies by itself. And now every country has drones. Chances are, anytime you see technology, like IMAX is 4K. IMAX has been around, at least in the modern world, for at least 25 years. So the technology has existed for 4K, but now we're getting 4K in the last 10 years. Chances are that whatever they have, the government has a lot of. They're probably, the whole thing with Bob Lazar was they were being asked to reverse engineer, figure out how's this craft has no engine, no pistons, no combustion, no form of what we would call propulsion, and is able to fly. And you'd have to imagine that whoever they are, they're probably thousands of years ahead of us in technology.
Yeah, he made the comparison that he said, what if you basically what they were trying to do was like, if you were to time travel back and drop a combustion engine into like the caveman era, and give a combustion engine to a caveman and say, figure that out. And let's duplicate that. That's what they were trying to do. They had they had not even the faintest clue with what they were doing, or if the next, rivet they took out was gonna, expose them to some chemical that would kill them, or on the spot. So imagine being that person that gets brought in and recruited, and they're like, all right, by the way, what you're actually here to do is you're gonna look at this alien ship with me. We're gonna try to figure out what the fuck it does, and hopefully we don't die in the process. How's that sound? Oh, and shut your fucking mouth. Don't say anything.
Exactly. And
the first thing you want to do is you want to run and tell everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So he was told, he said he overheard, I think he mentioned this in the Joe Rogan one, that they mentioned Zeta Reticuli, which is one of the star systems or one of the whatever, but it's like not too far relative to given how big our galaxy is. And are you familiar with the Drake equation?
It's how you go from DeGrasse, the show, to a big rapper, right?
No, not that one. So this dude made a calculation about what are the factors needed to have life on a planet. So number one, you need to be in a habitable zone, right? You got to be not too far, not too close to the sun where you can have running water.
Yeah,
the
Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, the Goldilocks zone. You also need a planet like Jupiter to absorb the convex. So Earth gets hit by less comets because Jupiter is so damn big. Any major comets tend to go past and hit Jupiter. So it's a very long and complicated equation, but by his standards, there should be at least up to maybe 10 million or maybe, 10 billion civilizations at any given point just in our Milky Way galaxy. Now, whether they have come and gone or they're still developing, it is crazy. And the one thing we have to figure out how to do, and I don't think we figured it out yet, unless even if we try to reverse engineer it, or even if the aliens give us technology, is how to travel faster than light. That's the one thing we got to, because even if we travel at light speed, it would still take us 4 years to get to the next system. That is something we got to figure out. And once that happens, that'll change everything. And I know that sounds like Star Trek talk, but they call it warp speed. Oh, by the way, that's what Trump's thing was called to develop the vaccine, warp speed. That's a Star Trek reference, warp speed. All these little clues everywhere. But the senator of Nevada, the former Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid, really pushed to get some of this stuff released. He's not a senator anymore, but he was pushing to get this stuff released and look into this because they say that we were being visited and we got to do something about it. I'm guessing if anyone in the government knows, it's none of our elected officials. I'm not trying to sound like there's an Illuminati, but I would imagine it's people who are deep within the system, deep within Central Intelligence and the Air Force who know this stuff. They're not going to, tell every congressman or congresswoman who gets elected, oh, by the way, this is what's happening at Roswell,
Yeah, not everyone gets that access.
I don't think the president does.
You wouldn't be able to keep this secret this long.
Yeah.
If that, I guarantee that each president is gauged on whether they could know this. I really don't think Trump's one of them. If I was the gatekeeper for all the secrets, the book of secrets, the national treasure of the fucking president's book, like whatever form that's in. Yeah. Like he's not a president I give that to. I'm sorry. Like, nope, shit. Yeah. Nope. We don't know anything, brother. Sorry. Yeah. Like,
but I could totally see him doing like, you ever seen Independence Day when the president just lands at Area 51 and he's like, open the door. And he's like, yes, sir. Like I could see Trump doing that, just landing at Area 51, no warning. I want to see the aliens. Sir, they're not here. Open that door. Sir, for your best safety, open the door. Stop me. And he's like live tweet from Area 51. Yeah, remember when they did that? Remember when they did that? The Area 51 thing? When everyone marched on Area 51? Yeah. Yeah. At that point, they probably moved it somewhere else. Like, they were ready to kill everybody. They were like, do not. I want to repeat this. Do not come here or cross that line, wherever that line is. Don't cross it, because like we'll have to do something. Like at that point, you're invading a military base. Yeah. Like, and all you need is one of those people to be like a Chinese spy, take a couple of pictures, and like this is what they're working on, But those deserts are weird. The Native Americans apparently have stories of those lights that were in Phoenix. The Native American tribes say that they have been seeing those lights for many years, and it's like, whoa. It's okay. So you could say it's a Chinese spy plane, but when it's 1860 or 1700, what the hell is flying up there? Can't be a drone. It can't be a kid. It really makes you think. And what I like about Joe Rogan, Joe's really open to this stuff. And again, a lot of it is conjecture. We don't know. But if there were ever a time for full disclosure, which is the government saying, okay, this is what we know, or at least telling us a piece of it, I think that would be the perfect time. I think humanity needs to believe in something or unify around something. In terms of movies, I'd like to think it'd be like that movie. You ever seen The Day the Earth Stood Still? Yes. Yeah. The black and white one, not the Keanu Reeves one. It would be something like that. I think it would actually be good for us. If there is a galactic federation like that Israeli space chief said, that changes everything. Like, all of a sudden, overpopulation, no longer an issue. Clean water, no longer an issue, because now we can travel to other places. But I think maybe many of them look at us and see us as trouble, see us as problem. Like, dude, if we give that technology, they're going to go crazy. You know, they're going to use it to become warlike. We assume they're warlike because we're warlike, but I'm going to assume that they have probably evolved past that to get into space travel and faster than light travel. They would have to evolve past a warlike state.
Yeah,
and we've thousands of years away from that.
I think that's another thing that people always assume because of Hollywood. You know, maybe why an advanced species got so far is because they don't waste their fucking time with petty bullshit anymore. Like,
Yeah,
like they're taking outgrow bullshit to the next level where they don't deal with it. Like they have no use for it. And that's why they were able to, instead of, imagine what we could do if the United States, China, Russia, even North Korea, like if we all put our shit aside and like focused, everyone brought their top scientists, their top 2,500 scientists, and brought them all together from around the world. Imagine what could get done. Just imagine what the possibilities would be.
Blowing. And I imagine it's possible we have made some great accomplishments. We just don't know about them, just like the stealth fighter, just like internet, just like all the stuff that we think just arrived in the last 10 to 15 years. They probably haven't, you know. That's why I think private corporations might be its plans, because if they figure this stuff out on their own outside of the government, that can create problems. Like, hey, we can figure out how to travel faster than light. We picked up a signal. You know, how did we pick it up in NASA? NASA's like, you know.
Well, we didn't see it. I mean, what's up with Elon Musk? I mean, he's getting ready to bring people to fucking Mars or some shit.
Yeah, I think that if aliens have bases on Mars, they might have bases there. I mean, they've been talking about going to Mars since I was a kid. When I was a little kid, I remember there was a documentary on Mars. And it was really famous because Patrick Stewart hosted it. And he was, you know, Captain Picard, Star Trek, and all that stuff. So we rented it from the library. The teacher brought it. We watched it in class. And they said, we will be in Mars by 2008. And here we are. Yeah. We still haven't gone past the moon. That's 250,000 miles away. We still haven't gone past the moon. In 50 years or 60 years of space travel, or coming up on 60 years, we still haven't gone past the moon as human beings. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, you know. And there are people that don't even think we've done that.
No, I'm not one of them. We have been to the moon. I'm not one of those people who says, like, you know, we didn't go to the moon. We went to the moon because if anyone would have found that out and screwed us over, it would have been the Russians. They would have loved to embarrass us. We've been to the moon because the plate they left back there, you can bounce a signal off it and back. We've been to the moon, but I'm just curious why we haven't been back. The official story is that the space race ended. Like, we beat the Russians to the moon. It's like, all right, time to kick up our feet. We're done. But
that would only motivate me to keep going, right?
So
that would only motivate me to want to go further. If I would, you know. Have you watched that?
Yeah, go ahead. Watch what?
Have you watched that Apollo documentary on Netflix? The one?
No.
Oh no. It's Apollo. And they talk about all the failed missions and like, you know, what actually happened, and it's actually pretty interesting. I mean, there was a lot more failed attempts, like with like how dedicated we were for being the ones that won that space race.
Yeah,
that overlooked a lot of different things, and they jeopardized a lot of safety in order to
beat the Russians.
Yeah, and it's very, very sad.
Yeah, the Russians launched the first satellite, Sputnik. They also had, on paper, officially the first human to go into space was Yuri Gagarin. This is coming from the Russians. I guarantee you they sent people before who didn't make it back. And they just didn't tell anyone. Because you have to remember what the Soviet Union was like back then. I mean, even now. I mean, that's not the Soviet Union anymore. But, like, there are stories of people receiving radio signals from space of people saying in Russian they're trapped. Like, again, this could be conjecture, but if you think that Yuri Gagarin was the first man in space and he came back successfully, that's the first person the Russians sent, I doubt it.
Yeah, imagine that. So that's like that real life Martian scenario, not Martian, fucking Interstellar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Dr. Mann being stuck on a random ass planet, like only, that'd be scary as hell.
Yeah.
As hell.
What did that guy just ask? What is like to know what's going on in our government with aliens?
Yeah. So you want to recap the first thing that so from last time?
What was that? Recap what?
The Israeli guy.
Okay, so he was
the Israeli one.
Yeah. He was so it's like their version of NASA, but it's part of their version of like the Pentagon. So he was the space chief in their Israeli Defense Force. So think of it this way: if like there was a branch of NASA, more like Space Force. Like it's basically, and what it's meant for, like give you an idea, they're not looking for aliens. It's more about satellite tracking and stuff like that. That's what he monitors. So this is not a random guy who's like, oh, I sold sandwiches at NASA. This is what I saw. I was a janitor at Area 51. This guy is a top dog. He's 86 years old. He just flat out said, this is what he said. I don't have many years left. This is what I'm going to tell you. We have been visited by aliens. The U.S. government is in contact with them. Trump wanted to reveal this information. He was told not to. There's a galactic federation of aliens out there. Like, to give you an example, kind of like Star Trek. And what made it interesting is that in the past, when people have said stuff like this, no one listens to them. But major news organizations were actually covering it, which means they were told, cover this guy. Because they don't cover Edgar Mitchell, they don't cover Bob Lazar or anyone like that, but they did cover this guy. And he's putting it in his book, and he's saying, look, this is what I'll tell you. This is what I know. He's 86 years old. Either he's pulling a prank and wants to troll everyone right before he dies, like, yeah, let me just tell them this as a deathbed confession, or there is some truth to it. And Israel and America have been working very close together, especially in the Middle East, for the last 30 or 40 years. I mean, they have a very close relationship, U.S. and Israel. So for him to say that, this is someone who's a top-level official in the Israeli government, not even mid-level or, the security guard at the Pentagon. This is like a big guy. There's a galactic federation of aliens. They have been in contact with us. Matt Mann just brought up Project Blue Book. So Project Blue Book was an actual thing. You ever heard of that? There's a TV show now that fictionalizes some of these events. Project Blue Book was an investigation to research these things and essentially debunk them. Oh, you just saw, Jupiter and Saturn nearby and it twinkled and you thought it was a UFO. And again, 90% of these things can be explained. That is not to say that every time anyone sees anything, it's true. But for that 5 or 10%, like the video the Pentagon released over the summer, that one scared me. Why would the Pentagon release it? It's not like some dude on YouTube saying, look, it's the United States Pentagon saying, hey, this is what we found. We don't know what it is, and it's not from here. I'm like, and no one noticed. It was on CNN. It was on everything, and everyone's just like,
Yeah, it's fucking weird. So like, it's a weird version. Will be like, hey, this.
There's a fictionalized version of it called. They made it on the History Channel, and the actor from The Wire, who was also Littlefinger, Lord Peter Baelish in Game of Thrones, he plays a real person, Dr. Alan Hynek, whose job it was every time one of these things happened, he would go there, debunk it, and a lot of times it was scientifically explained. Like, look, you saw this, you saw that, and it made it seem like this, illusions, blah, blah, blah. But after he retired, apparently he's made some statements that some of the stuff we debunked wasn't actually debunked. We just said it was debunked, Right. Of course, he never said he met aliens, but again, this is someone who worked for the U.S. government for a very, very long time, approaches old age, and says, this is what I know. And either all these people are lying and trolling for fun, or they actually know something. I mean, the idea of a galactic federation seems ridiculous now, but because it seems like science fiction, because that's how we kind of picture it. I know you don't watch Star Trek, but that's what Star Trek is. You have a federation of planets united, and then you have.
What do you mean I don't watch Star Trek?
I thought you weren't into Star Trek. Or I don't know if you like if that's your thing.
I mean, I like the newer movies. I've watched other Star Treks as well, but
so this off on a tangent. The newer J.J. Abrams movies is to Star Trek what the Schumacher movies are to Batman. To give you kind of an idea, that so they're not action packed, really. I mean, they have action, but Star Trek was always about humanity is very enlightened. They don't have money anymore. No more war, no more terrorism. All that's gone. We're united as a people. It was like this utopian. Earth is basically utopia, and we go out and the best way is to steal a line from the show. We don't try to attack you with war. We try to attack you with ideas and cultural exchange. And basically, the idea of like humans need to be better to each other. And anyway. So in Star Trek, you have the Federation. It's 140, 150 planets in a region of space that are all united to help each other. And, a lot of, political and ambassadorial type stuff. So if it's out there, they must have figured out how to travel faster than light. And maybe they don't want us, don't want us to know about them because they think that we would react. Like I said, if a UFO came, said we're in peace, and is having a meeting somewhere, some dude is going to grab his like M16 and start shooting at it.
Yeah. And who knows what that does?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who knows what happens after that?
Yeah. They use the Death Star.
But yeah, man, I love having these conversations. It is 11 o'clock though, so I'm probably going to wrap up. We'll do this again. This is not over. Yeah. But as always, I am always entertained. What we'll do is we'll regroup after the holidays and we'll both all right, so this is the deal. You and I, we're gonna both go in, we're gonna find a story that we haven't talked about yet. And that's our homework, is to find a story, an alien or something story like that. And bring that to the show next time to discuss.
Absolutely. And maybe we could do something like this. Once a month, we do a tinfoil hat thing, aside from Quick Tip.
I don't mind it. I do it all the time. It's just like a regular conversation. It's just live on a couple different platforms.
Yeah,
other people can come join.
I don't know who these people are, but they commented. Thank you. Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll be back Friday for our live Christmas Wonder Woman 84 special. So until then, and until then, one second. Until then,
we do it for you, and we do it for the culture.
There you go. That's Lucifer himself.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucifer's a good guy, man.
But it
was weird. He's really a good guy. She sucks. All right, thank you guys. I have to play her at least once a day, or I don't have enough, and I start withdrawing. You know what? I'm gonna go watch Fallen Skies right now.
All right, man. Assassin's Creed. All right. 141.
Wait, did it not play again?
How